Welcome back to Rise and Grind. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Kelly Adams is joining me today. She calls herself the Mary Poppins of Mindset, but she is a business and embodiment coach. And more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, she is my mentor. She has been my one-on-one mentor for 2 years, but I've been working with her fully for three, maybe more years. And so this is a very special experience for me to have her here. So, Kelly, you're here. We're here together. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Yay! Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to be here and just have a powerful conversation together. I love you. I love our work, and we are going to give the listeners some magic. That's what we're going to
We
do.
we totally are. So we are talking money, business, and manifestation during seasons of change or during times of your life where shit maybe is hitting the fan or things are transforming. And this topic in particular is very relevant to me. At the time that we are recording, I am just about 8 months pregnant. And at the time you are listening to this, I have already had my baby. But beyond that, Kelly has seen me through many different changes in my life, including a huge move and many other things inside my business. So I felt like this was a very relevant topic, not only to me after working with her, but Kelly also is a mother and has had multiple businesses, multiple life changes, multiple big moves, things like that. So I feel like this is something that's relevant to everyone, and not enough people are really talking about how differently things can look when your life is changing and your business needs to kind of move with it. So, Kelly, give us a little more about you and kind of kick us off here. Give us some of your thoughts on this topic.
Okay, amazing. I love a good conversation around transition. A lot of people get nervous around transition and pivoting. And I hope at the end of this conversation, these women are able to see the power in the pivot. So, yeah, just a little bit about me. I've owned multiple companies. My husband and I started our first company in 2006. We acquired a second company in 2009. And then we sold both of those companies in 2018. But part of that first transition was in the company, I was burnt out. My husband was burnt out. Some things needed to change. It was also very scary at that point in time. I was 39 years old. I'd been an entrepreneur almost my entire life, 12 years. That we worked inside the business and then decided to sell. And I had a little bit of an identity crisis at that point in time. 39 years old, we sold our business. And then we like to do things big over here. So sold our business. Then we sold our home. And then we sold everything we had except our children. Jokingly, I say everything except our children and underwear. And that is actually a very true story because then we moved from Indiana to the Tampa Bay area, and we brought nothing with us but a 10, 20-foot pod. It was the smallest pod you could have, and started over. And in some ways, I started over in my career. And in some ways, it was just an extension of what I was doing, but it was absolutely different from moving to a brick and mortar to the online space. So, yeah, now my kiddos, we started a company when my youngest or my oldest now is 6 weeks old. And now my kiddos are 19, 16, and 14, actually celebrating a birthday today while we're on this together. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation because, like you shared, I've got to witness so many changes in you and who you had to become to master those changes. And you're a walking testimony to that. So I'm really excited to dive in and kind of jam out on these pillars together and give some women some hope, some inspiration, and some activation that change gets to be easy. It gets to be fun and it gets to be easy.
Yeah,
So thanks for having me.
I love that. I'm so glad you're here. I want to talk first about money because I feel like it's a topic that can be sensitive for a lot of people, but it's something that you and I both jam out on all the fucking time on social media and in our own coaching sessions and things like that.
Yeah.
And money especially seems to be something that with big transitions in your life seems to be something that people really stress about. And they feel like it's something that is very unpredictable, and especially manifesting money during a time where things in your life feel hectic can feel difficult. So if someone came to you and you could tell them one thing about their money story during a time of change, what would you want them to know?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to whip out one of my favorites. Money is not emotional, you are. So don't make money emotional. I jokingly always say, you've never seen a dollar bill walking down the street saying, I'm so happy or I'm so sad. It's just the perception and what we make money mean. So, with any big life transition or just business in general, money is not emotional, you are. So, I would say take the emotion out of money and see it as neutral.
Oh my God. I love that. I don't know that I've heard you say that to me before.
Mhm. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's one of my favorite things. I would be dead. I would be surprised if haven't heard me say that.
You probably have along the way. But yeah, I think the emotional attachment to money is something that a lot of
Mhm.
people are experiencing, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I would even go so far as to say it really shouldn't be that way.
Yeah,
Because the more emotionally attached you are to your income, the more power it holds over you. And during life transitions, there's potential that your income may fluctuate. That's there, your income
100%.
may fluctuate even if your life stays the same. And having an emotional attachment to it is extremely dangerous, I think, in a lot of ways, because then if your income goes down, you have this attachment and this feeling that will come up like, I'm not good enough, or that your worth is a reflection of the amount of money that you're making. And that is something that unfortunately is perpetuated a lot by the online space. But I really disagree with that. I don't think that your income really has anything to do with your worth. And I also think that if you're placing your happiness in the amount of money that you'll make, you're never going to be happy.
That's a false positive. Been there, done that.
Same. Same.
It's just like, I think the real flex in business is having joy with a little, joy with a lot. You can make a ton of money, you can be content with a little, but when you can actually be content regardless of your circumstance, and still expectant of more, I think that's a game changer.
Yeah.
You touched on it, how you said, income fluctuates up and down. That's normal. That's business. That's entrepreneurship. So regardless of if you have a major life change or not, that's going to happen.
Mhm.
So I think some of the most successful women, they don't let uncertainty shake their money discipline.
Yeah.
They still have this internal knowingness that they're safe. And you and I both know that it takes work to get there. I mean, that's not like something that just happens magically. You take work to be safe with who you are, regardless of what your bank account says.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time when if you're in a position where you want to make more money, you're so focused on the money itself in
Yeah.
that situation, or you're focused on business and sales in that situation when in reality, and I know this is not like the most popular, well, you're going to agree with this opinion, but this is not the most popular opinion, that really the work needs to be done on yourself in that situation. It's inner safety, it's inner trust. It's not, oh my God, let me chase this money because that's going to be the answer. That's actually not the answer at all. It's the result of doing the inner work.
Yeah. And that is something that now I'm glad I went through a lot of this stuff because now I get to collapse time and walls for others. But I was chasing money the whole first time at Ace. And then when the money stopped and the validation stopped, I had to do a lot of work. Who am I without the money?
Yeah.
And without somebody telling me how awesome I am every single day.
Hmm.
So it's like it's definitely an identity shift. But I would say again, something that you've done consistently well, because you have. I've got to be the passenger in a lot of big life changes. But what you've done and what I think the most successful women, including myself, have done is even in uncertain times, even in change, you don't stop investing in your growth.
Yeah.
You do it strategically. You can do it in a way that's powerful, but instead of cutting back, the mindset is, what can I create? How can I how can I make this pivot or this life change even more powerful? What can come through this? What is happening for me instead of to me? And when you start thinking that way with money, it's not about the circumstances change. It's about having that internal knowingness that you're the one that made the money in the first place. So instead of being scared and beginning to operate from a place of scarcity, I think the power move is, be smart, be a good steward with your money, but look for opportunities.
Yeah.
Don't pull back. Keep investing in yourself because you are your best investment. You want an ROI? Invest in yourself. That's going to pay back the next 5, 10, 15 years. Your life change is going to change. Investing is in you is going to allow you to continue to grow and scale on the other side of the change.
I think what this all kind of boils down to, which this was not really what we had discussed beforehand, but truly I think what's coming through for me is this whole conversation is really an embodiment and identity conversation.
You're right. I would agree. I would
You know,
agree.
yeah, I think in a lot of ways, the more solid your identity is as the version of you that can handle when shit hits the fan, that can handle life transitions, and really is the type of person that makes things happen regardless of what's going on around you. When you are
Yeah.
rooted in that identity and you are embodying that identity, even during times where maybe your emotions are not agreeing or your environment is not agreeing, when you have that solid identity in yourself and the embodiment piece and really the tools to do those things, which is why you work with a mindset coach or you
Yeah.
learn these things, that's really all it takes. And then what happens is you become like the calm in the storm. So even
Yeah.
when things are going crazy around you or when life is changing or whatever, if you are the type of person that makes things happen, you're going to make things happen. And
Yeah.
that is not a naturally occurring trait. That can be a decision, that can be an embodiment, that can be an identity that you shift into. It's not this thing that you're born with necessarily. It's just like confidence or anything else. It can be a choice, it can be a change that you make in your brain. When those things are true, it doesn't fucking matter what else is going on. So really, the work is not how to maintain your money or your business or whatever during times of change. It's how do you work on you so that the times of change don't cause you to waver.
Yeah. So who do you need what kind of woman do you need to become to be able to stay in her power regardless of what the world is throwing at you? Because as long
Mhm.
as we're breathing on this earth, there's going to be trials, there's going to be changes, there's going to be tribulations. But it's like if you can be grounded in you and have the tools and become the woman who can handle it all, I mean, you just said it exactly right. That's the game changer. That's what keeps you in the game and that's what keeps you winning.
So then the opposite of that, I would say, which I'd like to talk about for a second, is being able to be wavered by everything.
Mm,
And I think that people who are easily shaken by anything, maybe by an income dip or by clients changing, or even like when your manifestation is taking too long and you're fucking frustrated and you're wondering where the hell it is,
mhm.
allowing those things to shake you and are, causing you distress basically because they're not happening the way that you want them to. What kind of things can those people work on, or like what kind of things would be the signal to you like, oh, they're shaken by everything, like we need to work on this?
Okay, so signals would be they're not leaning into it. They are doubling down on working harder because they think that's the fix. They're not anchored into their identity. They're anchored into the circumstance in that moment. It usually shows up as this very scattered energy. This isn't working. This like it just feels very chaotic to me. Um, but I mean, I guess like if we're doing the polarity of that, the other version of that is someone who doesn't let chaos define them and they're able to hold on to the bigger vision even though they're focused on what's happening in that moment. Like, so I would say if you're only focused on what's happening in that moment versus the bigger vision, that's a problem. You're not in full embodiment. You're running the ebb and flow of your life versus being grounded in the storm, kind of another way to
Yeah.
say it. I think one of the things that I think the most successful women do is they release the attachment to outcomes.
Mm,
And they trust that what is happening is unfolding and working for me, not to me. And I know you and I have had that conversation many of times. And it's happening for me, not to me, even if the outcome or in the life transition is different than expected.
yeah.
They have got to such a place of trust that that's okay too. And that's hard. That's hard because a lot of people are going to come gripping the ground, screaming and kicking, and this isn't fair, and this isn't what I wanted, and this isn't what I expected. But when you're grounded, I think, in the right rituals and you've embodied the woman that you need to be, then that helps you stay aligned in these times of transition or times of change.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, it's something that I struggled with and am now on the other side of, but I can look back and really remember how this felt is what you're describing. But I had such a hard time letting go of control. Like I wanted
Yeah.
to control the outcomes. And I do think that there's a bit of a narrative in the online space that you can do that. Especially with manifestation, like you can control exactly how something turns out. But as far as I'm concerned, the need for complete control is like a trauma response in a lot of ways.
Oh, it 100% is because to me, like, I get visions of my clients like making sticky notes and their notes have notes and it's refining. I mean, I'm a control freak in recovery at all times, high achieving control freak in recovery. But when we're doubling down, it's because we're not feeling safe in our external circumstances. So we're trying to control usually numbers, which is why it shows up in women and usually their body or their bank account.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think you're just grasping at whatever is potentially within your control when
Yeah.
everything else feels out of control.
Yeah.
Which I think for many women is existent in motherhood also. And I would love for you to speak on that for a minute as someone who has three children and has raised them from the time they were little. I mean, you don't have super little children anymore, so I feel like you've seen a lot of phases of motherhood, but all through entrepreneurship when it probably feels like shit is hitting the fan sometimes, especially with three kids. It probably felt like a zoo at times. I'm one of four, so like, I know what that house probably felt like. And it can feel chaotic, but you still led through that so
Yeah.
powerfully. So I I would love your take on this just for myself, but I'm sure that there are plenty
Yeah.
of women listening that want to know how to do this and how to navigate this.
Yeah. Well, I think my kids have been some of my greatest teachers as well. And for those who don't know, I did take, we had a very large office. We had multiple offices. We had a huge warehouse, but all of our babies went to work with us. So that was part of it. So I was literally a mom and a boss in one. Like thinking back of the things we did to grow and scale that company with our kids, like literally is mind blowing. Um, but to be honest, I didn't really feel the the challenges of it until I had multiples. Once baby number two came and I had a toddler and a baby, I was like, I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm like, I literally, well, I guess it started with dogs, like because there's like a level of control I had to release. When I first got married, had one dog. My husband wanted a kid, needed to wait 2 more years. I wasn't ready, had another dog. And for a OCD, obsessive, clean freak, like now there's hair, there's all these things happening. So they were prepping me, little did I know, for my kids. And then by the time kids came, it was like, you know, choose your battle. Every choice has an end voice. Do I really want to argue over what shoes they're going to wear? Or do I want them just to roll and like just move? So I know it sounds probably kind of silly, but it's down to the little things. And there's so much that happens day in and day out as being a woman, as being a wife, as being a friend, as being a mother, as being a business owner. So it's like you have to choose really what's important. So for me, to be completely honest, a lot of it was probably forced. I I chose to release. And I would have gone kicking and screaming as well. Like you know how you hear me say, I choose to feel and I also choose to let it go. I would literally be like, I am choosing to feel stressed right now because at the end of the day, they're kiddos, they're babies, they're doing their thing, but I also choose to let it go. So it's like it's a conscious awareness to choose to release it, to choose to move differently, to choose to think differently, to choose to make decisions from the woman that I desired to be, not what's happening in the moment. But that is where self-awareness comes in. And it happened by me rewiring and doing the same thing over and over and choosing different because it's a choice. And there's a lot of hats that we wear as women. So um did that answer your question appropriately? I felt like I was like going, I could feel the old pressures coming back up.
You're having like flashbacks, war flashbacks.
Yeah, you want to know my flashback I'm having is when I had the two kiddos, and the very first moment I remember surrender is I was trying to get one kiddo out the house. She had colic, she had belly issues, so we were always stopping every 5 seconds. My other son picks up a shoe basket, dumps it over the floor. There's stuff everywhere, and I got to get to work. And I'm like, breathe, let it go. Like, what kind of mom, what kind of human do you want to show up in this moment? So that it might sound small to somebody listening, but that was honestly the very first moment I remember choosing I had to release control. You can be perfect or you can be happy, but choose what you want because in that moment I couldn't have both. So I chose happiness and I chose to release the control.
I love that. I think that's a very relevant phrase or like powerful statement for
Yeah.
anyone, motherhood or not. You can choose to be
Yeah.
perfect or you can choose to be happy. I love
Yeah.
that. And I do think that there's a lot, I call myself a recovering perfectionist because I feel that. Um, and it's very difficult to put that pressure on yourself, which I think is very relevant for moms, but also very relevant for entrepreneurs. You feel this pressure to be showing up perfectly or perfectly executing your content or perfectly executing your
Yeah.
emails or perfectly executing everything. Um, and really what's happening there is you're setting yourself up for disappointment because you can't be perfect. You
Yeah.
can't.
That's
Eh,
that 80% rule. Hey, you high achievers tuning in. Uh, that's why you have to operate. Is everything going 80% well? And if you can say yes, that's 100% for somebody else. So around that control piece, and especially during life changes, am I mastering this at 80%? Because your B is somebody else's A plus because we're so hard on ourselves,
mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
When you're an ambitious, high achieving woman, it is so easy not only to put that pressure on yourself, but to keep moving the bar too.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
what used to be good enough isn't anymore because you already did that. And then you need something new and then you need something better and we need to do even more perfect things. And especially going into this season of motherhood for me, the ability to go 80% while also releasing control, that combination of things is extremely vital because I have seen many women through seasons of motherhood, but also just seasons of business,
Mhm.
even if they aren't a mom. And really, it is the easiest thing in the world to just continue to pile on the pressure and what you should be doing. And I will admit that social media is probably the worst perpetuator of this as well, because you constantly see someone's perfect shit out there. You see their perfect aesthetic, or you see even moms who look like they have all of their shit together somehow all of the time. And what I think I'm going to need to hear down the line, and what I'm sure other women need to hear, is it really comes down to the identity piece, but also the detachment and the
Yeah.
ability
Yeah.
to like be cool with how things are in the moment. And same thing with that statement, like, are you going to be perfect or are you going to be happy in this moment? Are you going to choose to feel a certain way? And also remembering, this is sort of like a side note, but super connected, remembering how powerful you actually are too. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have the power to shift the way that you're feeling. You have the power to calm your nervous system. You have the power to kind of bring things back together when it feels like shit is hitting the fan.
Yeah.
And don't forget that. Don't become, you know, a basically like a victim of circumstance in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. In your
Yeah.
business, with your money, with your kids, with whoever, remember how powerful you are at creating your reality, really, ultimately.
Yeah. That's
But
why we love the mantra. It gets to be easy
yeah,
with work. We should say with gets to be easy with the right tools. That's our
yes, it gets
disclosure with the right tools.
in parentheses.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that a lot of the time we feel like we have to like earn something so hard or this is a big thing, we have to sacrifice. Like we can't possibly get what we want without
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice. And I personally disagree. I don't think that sacrifice is necessary in a lot of ways. Does that mean that every single day is going to be perfect or exactly what you planned? No. But I also don't think that it requires anything else in your life to have to suffer in order for another part to be thriving. Like if you're making the money that you've always desired, that doesn't mean that something else has to be suffering at the same
Yeah.
time.
That kind of touches on duality. And I think like this is a probably a good time to bring that up, which you can be going through hard stuff and still feel good, or you can go through hard stuff and still get your dream X. So it's like that's another power move is when you can hold it all. Because the human experience, we're meant to feel everything. Not every day is supposed to be rainbows and butterflies. And a lot of people don't feel safe to feel. They want to push it down. But it's like when you allow yourself to feel into it and feel an array of emotions, I think that's powerful. I think that's like literally living the best human experience as a woman that you can live. But for
Yeah,
the person who hasn't done the work, it's scary, you know?
100%. And I talked about this on the podcast last year, but you saw me through this when I had my big move, and it
Yeah.
felt like my world was falling apart because the move was very unexpected. I won't go into it now. You can go back and
Yeah.
listen if you're listening and you don't know what I'm talking about. But a lot of things fell apart at once. And at the time, I had a lot of people reaching out to me, talking to me about how I was leading myself through it. And I realized to a certain degree that I was doing it, but so much of it had become second nature to just lead myself through shit like that because of the work that I have done. So I think what I really want people to know is it doesn't always have to be this like very conscious like amount of effort and work where you constantly feel like you're battling things. When
Yeah.
you are truly embodying and your identity has truly shifted, you start to do it second nature anyway. And during that move, I remember feeling the oddest sense of calm when I really shouldn't have
I
been.
remember.
Like, yeah, I was like so, I mean, I processed my emotions. There were
Yep.
tears. I'm not going to make it sound like I was like,
Well, right.
cheersing and, popping champagne the whole time. But I gave myself the opportunity to process my emotions. That's very important, people. Please
Yeah.
process the shitty things. But then I was like, okay, I'm good because I'm the type of person who's always good. I can lead myself through things. I can handle
Mhm.
it because I have the space for duality. And the month after when I moved into my house was like one of my best months in business. And so I think the ability to have that identity anchor almost
Yeah.
really protects you from being frantic and chaotic when the rest of your life is crazy.
Yeah. 100%. And I got goosebumps when you were just speaking about it because I mean, as your coach and mentor, like that was like really richly rewarding to see who you've become through each life transition. We jokingly always say I'm your mindset mama, but I literally feel so proud because like you can see it. Like you're not even the same human that I met like 2 years ago. And it's like a peace that surpasses understanding. You can't explain it, but it's because you've done the work, you've cleared the things that you needed to clear, and you're really embodied in your truth.
Yeah.
You're actually, when I say it, naked raw baby chicken now.
It's so true. But that's because of the work that we've done together. And I think
Powerful though.
yes, and having the right mentor can really make or break things as far as I'm concerned. And at the
Yeah,
same time, I just want to reiterate, like this has been years of work,
yeah,
like it takes transformation, it takes consistency, it takes reinforcement. I mean, my podcast listeners, if you listen to my podcast, you've heard me say that 100 bazillion fucking times, but the reinforcement piece and the consistency is really, really important to get to the point where it becomes your autopilot setting to be rock solid, where it becomes no big deal when shit is not going your way because you still have this deep down like groundedness of okay, I'm good. Like whatever happens, it doesn't really matter what's occurring around me or in my environment. Like I'm Gucci because I'm good in here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So all you Amazon Prime people who want this to happen in 2.2 hours, you have to realize that this is an ongoing work.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, you're working your mindset muscle, just like you work an ongoing muscle in the gym if you desire to be healthy and lean and take care of yourself. But it does become, like you said, second nature. It happens so naturally and quickly and organically. You can see the time for yourself collapsing when you start to have the strategies, because things that maybe used to take me 2 weeks to move through, I can move through in like 20 minutes now.
Yeah.
So it's like you're collapsing time and walls, but for yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
over time, you know?
Well, and that's really like skill building of any
Yeah,
kind.
right.
You just get better at it and it does get easier.
Mm,
And I think that the mistake a lot of people make, and feel free to interject here with others,
okay.
but I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they do like a month of mindset work and then they're like, okay, why am I not her yet? Yeah, like I did it. Like I did the thing. I had one hypnotherapy session. Like, where's my money or where's my confidence or whatever. Um, and again, I feel like I keep saying this, but I feel very strongly that there are a lot of narratives out there that encourage that type of instant gratification
Right.
idea. But legitimately, from a neuroscience perspective, like that's not how your brain works.
No.
And it puts unrealistic pressure on you then. And then you feel even worse probably because shit isn't happening the way that you thought it would. And then you feel like it's a reflection of you or that you're the problem. When in reality, that just hasn't occurred enough times for your brain to rewire. And then on top of that, what happens is you go through that 30 days, right? Where you're like really you're dedicated and then you think it doesn't work, so you kind of drop off. So then every time you try it again, you're basically restarting. Whereas you could have
Mhm.
cumulatively collapsed so much fucking time had you just stayed the course when it looked like it wasn't working.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there are a lot of mistakes that people make when it comes to this, especially with manifesting the things that they want. One of them being the inability to stay the course.
Yeah. Well, an analogy that I always like to invite people into, like, I enjoy the outdoors. I enjoy the woods. So if you've ever been to a park or, a state park and you're hiking, you'll see those random, if there's water on the trail, those like little paths, it's not a complete trail, but you can see somebody's maybe stepped there once or twice. So it's like what you're doing when you're choosing to think, feel, and operate differently is your mind each time, and this is happening in like a millisecond, each time the mind is like, boom, boom. So it's like it's going to always take the path of least resistance because that's what you've trained it to do at first. So it's taking that trail that everybody's walked on. But then if you choose to stay the course and do the work, that trail that's off the path that, maybe the grass is still tall, you go down it, you start thinking a new thought. And then the next time you choose to think another new thought. And so it gets a little bit more grounded. It gets a little bit flatter. And then over time, what you're doing is you're training your mind to choose the new path automatically. But that's why it can't happen overnight because the brain is a computer program. It's doing the old program that you've taught it to do. And until you insert a new program, a new empowered program, it's always going to choose the left. And we're training it to choose the right. And so the rewiring or the reconditioning process is really where it's at. Like once you understand what you need to clear or what you need to let go of, then it's literally just a conscious choice to catch it, reroute it, and create a new path, which is a new neural pathway. And then choose over time, your brain will then choose that new path. It feels like it's Norton antivirus at first when you start. It's uncomfortable. There's resistance. If you think of our brain like a computer, it's going to kick it out. It's such a foreign feeling. And a lot of times people get more comfortable with chaos than calm. So when you do this kind of work, your body's conditioned to look for the chaos still. A life transition. Oh my goodness, things are falling apart and all this other stuff is happening. But then when you're training your body and training your mind over time, it does become the calmer, more grounded path. But that's with consistently choosing that path over and over again.
Yeah, I said on one other episode that the way that your brain rewires and like new neural pathways are formed is the same way you learn a language.
Yeah.
And the best way to learn a language, if you ask anyone bilingual or anyone who has learned a second language, especially as an adult, they're going to tell you that immersion is the
Mhm.
best way to learn a new language. And during the beginning of an immersive experience, guess what? Your first language is going to feel way more comfortable. It's going to be so much easier to just speak
Yeah.
English or whatever your first language is. But over time, it becomes second nature, and the time in between can be uncomfortable. You don't always know what
Yeah.
to say. You don't always know what to do. You don't always have the resources in your brain to have that conversation or whatever. And mindset is really no different. Like
Yeah.
when you're transitioning into that identity, it's the same way. And until you have the identity of the version of you that can see through life transitions and can see through shit hitting the fan or becoming a mom or even opening a new business or a new income level or whatever, until that identity is immersed enough, you've been immersed in it enough to where it's your autopilot
Yeah.
setting, it's going to be really difficult and it's going to feel really uncomfortable and it's going to take a bit more consciousness than it will down the line in order to keep your shit together when you feel like losing it.
Yeah, 100%. It's so funny though. The online world's a different beast than the real brick and mortar or corporate world. It's just some of the thoughts are just like blow me away. Like at first when I transitioned, I was like, what is this world? What are you guys teaching and preaching? Like, this is not even business. It's so funny how people will stick with a business strategy that isn't working forever. But then if there's a mindset strategy not working in like zero point 0.2 days, they're like, it's not working. Well, I just watched you do the same rinse and repeat content strategy where you're getting zero moves, but okay, cool. So it's funny how people and how the human experience, we perceive where we will actually put some sweat equity into versus like just doing it, which is the definition of insanity, over and over and over again.
Hmm. Yeah. I would say the funniest thing here, well, first of all, we've discussed the importance of mindset over basically everything before.
Yeah,
And how skeptical people can be about mindset work when it's really like the thing that's going to save them through
yeah,
basically anything. But I do think a lot of it is written off as like a woo-woo, like it's not real or, it's just spiritual or just energetic or whatever, which clearly is not true. But
right,
I do think from a legitimate mindset perspective, if you're teaching mindset like we are, from a brain science backed understanding of how things actually change in your identity, there is literally nothing that you can't do. Like there's nothing that you can't see through. There's nothing that you can't build. There's nothing that you can't create. it's
Right.
really like the key to being the version of yourself and having the reality that you want, regardless of what's going on. And I think for a lot of people, because those things are negotiable, because their identity is negotiable, or because their embodiment is negotiable, then if something else changes, that also changes as a result. Whereas if you do the work and you show the fuck up for yourself and you rewire, it really doesn't matter what comes up in the rest of your life. It doesn't matter what changes. It doesn't matter what occurs because you yourself are the key to the solution instead of chasing after whatever you think the solution is.
Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, I've studied the mind for years, and I like, we know we both nerd out on this, but I like nerd out on this kind of stuff. I probably, honest to goodness, study it minimum 1 to 2 hours a day because I'm that obsessed with it. And it's just like, this is, to me, it's a secret magic power that I think everybody should have. Like, I literally, like, my husband jokes and says, "You shit rainbows and unicorns." You're damn right I do. I do. And I love it. And I wouldn't change it any other way. But it's, I feel like I have this magical, like, seventh sense that nobody else gets to operate with because of the work I've done. I mean, if you've done this work, you get to operate that way. But it really does make life easier all around. Like,
Yeah.
we've talked about it. It's the relationship, it's the business, it's the friendships, it's how you mother, it's how you partner. It really is the thing that has the greatest return, not just in business, but in life and all facets and all aspects. And mindset creates the ripple effect because heal people, and hurt people. So
Yeah.
the more you learn these skills, you get to pass them on to everybody that you're doing life with. And it's really sexy. It's really
Yeah.
fun.
It totally is. And just as someone who, in the time I've worked with you, like you said, I am a totally different person. I feel like a totally different person.
Yeah.
But in so many ways, I have unlearned the things that I thought were the answer.
Yeah.
I've detached from things that I used to be unhealthily attached to.
Yeah.
And in doing those things, your life becomes so enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost ridiculous. Like, and it's not because everything is perfect. Again, like, it's not because you're all of a sudden a multimillionaire who has every material thing or, every relationship in your life is perfect or, every light is green when you get to it. Like, that's not the reality of
Right.
my life. But when you really do this work, the thing I've said this on Instagram so many times recently, like I'm so at peace,
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
you
It's a
know?
That's I said this a couple minutes ago, but it is a piece that surpasses understanding. Until you've experienced it, it's hard to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think personally, just having done the work myself and really detaching from all the things that you think are the things that are going to make you happy, similar to you, you make all this money and you think that's the answer. I don't think
Mhm.
I've been more unhappy than during the times I've made like insane amounts of money the wrong way.
Yeah.
Um, but you
Well, because then you're just
truly,
freaking out that you're going to lose it all. That's
yeah,
why
yeah,
you make it. But if you haven't done the work, then you're like, can I keep it? Can I sustain it? Sustain it? And you're just freaking out and not even enjoying it because you're like worrying about it.
yeah. Well, it's either that. I've had that at least once, and then I've had burnout where like I
Yeah.
just literally couldn't
Yeah.
sustain it. Like I could not have sustained that amount of effort as an
Yeah.
individual, without probably like making myself sick or just,
Mhm.
shutting down basically. And those two things are so fucking common. It's insane. But when
Yeah.
you detach from needing those things to define you, life is so different. And I think because of that, this ties into the whole like transition conversation where like it doesn't really matter what else is going on because you've
Mhm.
learned to heal from the need to be validated by those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say that I like to take women on an unbecoming to become. And you kind of touched on that because it's killing the stories, the patterns, the thoughts that maybe at one point in time supported you, but now as a grown woman, you get to choose now if those things that you've been holding on to most of the time out of protection for some reason are still supporting you now in your current age or where you're at.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're not. They were there to protect us, and then we've outgrown them. And a lot of us just haven't done the work to release those outdated stories.
Yeah, 100%. And the most important thing to know is that you can. Like, these aren't shackles for the rest of your life. And it's very possible to like unlearn, unbelieve, and then relearn and shift into an
Yeah.
identity that's actually going to serve you. So you know that version of yourself or that reality that you're like dreaming of every night where you're like, oh, I just wish I could XYZ, really can exist for you when the work is done.
And we should probably, because those are listening, I guarantee at this point in time, you're like, okay, well, how? How?
Yes.
And it's a baby step. You're not going all in all the time, but you're taking a small conscious step. You're reading a course, you're getting a mentor, you're joining a membership, you're listening to a podcast, you're listening to a track. It's just like when I first started on my journey from one of my mentors at that point in time, I had to sit still for 1 minute. That's how I started my whole journey. Because when you sit still, all the little voices pop up, and I thought I was going to die. 1 minute. And then 1 minute became, next thing I know, I'm in this meditation challenge where I'm listening for 1 hour a day for 30 minutes. And then so it grew. So I think that's another thing to highlight. Just like, if you're starting a business, there's steps you take. If you're on a journey, like it's doing a little bit well consistently, and then consistently over time the change comes. You can't be like Carla said, a one and done girl. It's just about taking consistent action, getting plugged into the right place, the right community, the right mentor, and then it's ongoing work, just like you'd invest in yourself in anything else. So if you are hearing this conversation and you're like, oh my goodness, this is me, I want a piece of that, start small. Go find a podcast. Listen to this podcast. Look, you're winning. You just took step number one. You're winning.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do something every day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be a huge time commitment. It can be less of a time commitment than this podcast. Usually I tell my clients, like, if you have 10 minutes, you're good.
Yeah.
Because the consistency is way more important than the length of time that you're investing. And even though things like podcast episodes or even like hypnotherapy, things like that, that are a little bit more of a time commitment, I would say, than just
Yeah.
like a few minutes of visualization or journaling or whatever, even though those things are extremely transformative as well, they don't need to be a daily practice in order for change to occur. And don't let that intimidate you. A few minutes every single day will put you so far ahead. You're going to blink. It's going to be 60 days, and you're going to be like, who was that girl 60 days ago? Like, I don't even know her.
Yeah.
Because the change is going to be so obvious to you. So, like Kelly said, pick one thing and do it. Obviously, reach out to either of us for recommendations. We'll give them to you. Or just listen to podcasts like this, follow people like us on Instagram, things like that. And the more you get reinforcement of the changes that you're making, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sold. Let's go.
I know, right? For real. So I think
This
this
is
is this is a good time. Kelly, tell us where people can find you, how people can work with you, give them the spiel.
okay.
How can queens reach out to you?
I am Kelly Adams Coaching on Instagram. I spend most of my time on Instagram or LinkedIn, Kelly Adams on LinkedIn. And then my website is kellyadamscoach.com. I do have an amazing free 5-day challenge, which creates awareness, which again, you can't clear what you can't see. So that's a totally free experience for you to be able to maybe start and recognize some of your triggers and give yourself like kind of a pathway to start to feel successful. That's 100% free. That's on my website. And yeah, that's where I spend most of my time or hanging out with you behind the scenes.
I know, right? I will definitely link all of that, by the way, for everyone in the show notes slash description and all of that. So
Yeah.
you can scroll down also if you didn't write that down or you just want to click. I will hyperlink all of that for you so that you can reach out to Kelly. Highly recommend, obviously. But Kelly, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking all things. Like, I feel like we covered so many topics, but really
Yeah.
this sort of like motherhood, money, manifestation conversation. Um, I can't think of anything I'd rather talk about, frankly. So I loved this.
Right, right. Well,
And
Carly, thank
go
you
ahead.
for letting me walk alongside you. Like it's like I don't take that lightly. Like I take mentorship as an honor, and it's been an honor to see you step into your power. And now as like a mama, like this is just the next phase. So I was sharing with Carly before we started. It's such a blessing that she's done this work at such a young age because she's literally cleared generational patterns and is setting her family up for enormous success.
Well, thank
Some
you.
conscious kids. Here we go.
I'm telling you, that's why we do the work, isn't it? So that we can pass those things on and just anything that I am, I hope that my kids multiply. And so as healed as I
Right.
am, I hope my kids are even that much more healed and have less to heal from and all of
Yeah,
that. But thank you for guiding me all this time and really introducing me to a lot of this work. So it's been like the best years together.
I
It
agree.
really has. It really has. Well, thank you for being here today as well and taking the time. And I know that everyone is going to love this conversation. So, like I said, I'm going to put Kelly's contact info down below. My contact info is always down below. So, if you need me or anything, you guys know where to find me. And with that, my queens, I think we're done for today. We're going to wrap this up. Kelly, thank you again. And I will see my queens next week on the next episode.